This is the 2021 Ford Escape SE. Now, a couple things about this vehicle. It's powered by a 1.5-liter 3-cylinder engine with cylinder deactivation to give you better gas mileage. On top of that, the vehicle is available either in that gas engine or available as a hybrid. On top of that, it's available in either all-wheel drive or front-wheel drive. It's got cloth seats, Sync3 screen with Android Auto and Apple CarPlay capabilities, and a number of other things. My name is Steve, Cars with Steve, and today we're going to be diving into the 2021 Ford Escape SE, and I'm going to be showing you everything that you need to know about this vehicle. We're going to talk about the dimensions inside of the vehicle, inside of the trunk, how to set up Android Auto, Apple CarPlay, and everything else that you might need to know about this thing. If you enjoyed the video, please make sure that you give it a thumbs up and consider subscribing with those bell notifications on. And I'm also going to hide an Amazon gift card somewhere in this video, so keep an eye out. $10 Amazon gift card code hiding somewhere inside of this thing. But guys, let's dive right into it and see what the 2021 Ford Escape has to offer. From a power perspective, the 2021 Ford Escape SE technically has two available engine choices. The first one is going to be the 1.5-liter EcoBoost that we're looking at here, but this thing also does have the capability for a hybrid engine instead. So when it comes down to it, the 1.5-liter EcoBoost is going to be able to push out 181 horsepower and 190 pound-feet of torque. When you look at the hybrid version of the vehicle, that's going to be a 2.5-liter hybrid engine. It's going to push out 200 horsepower and 155 pound-feet of torque. So very powerful and very straightforward. Now, even looking under the hood, now this thing is very simple when it comes down to it. So it's a 3-cylinder engine with cylinder deactivation, which means that we also have the ability to have improved gas performance, which is great. Under the hood, we can easily top up some fluids. We've got our windshield wiper fluid there. If you're a little bit handy, you want to check and change your oil, you've got the capabilities to do that. And we also have easy access to the battery. So if we ever need to charge, jump some, whatever the case may be, we've got the ability to do that fairly easily. Now, when it comes down to a technology perspective, there will be some things that are standard inside of the Escape SE. As you can see there, we've got our backup camera. Now, the SE does not have a reverse sensing system, so that's available as an option. You can do that aftermarket as well. But as part of the co-pilot package, we do have our blind spot system. Lets us know if anybody's entered the blind spot, and the vehicle also does have a lane keeping system, so lane keeping and lane centering. Taking a peek at the key fob of the vehicle. So this is the SE trim level of the vehicle. So as you can see on the fob there, we've got our unlock button, our lock button, as well as our panic or our horn alarm button. Now, a couple things to note inside of the 2021 version of the vehicle, there are some new packages which will give you remote start if you wanted that on the key fob. But having said that, the vehicle is equipped with Ford Pass Connect. So it's got a built-in modem, so you'd be able to remote start directly through your cell phone. It's if you really wanted that button on your key fob, you could do it, but you would need an extra package to do it. So it's really a matter of preference. Other thing to point out on the fob underneath, as you can see, we do have an emergency access key. The emergency access key is going to give us the ability to get inside the vehicle if we ever have a fob that's not working. So if you look at the tow package from the factory, it's going to give you the ability to tow up to 2,000 pounds inside of the 1.5-liter engine. If you were to look at the hybrid instead, that drops it down. You're going to be hovering around 1,500 pound towing capacity instead. Now, one of the nice things about getting the tow package from the factory is that it just looks cleaner. It's going to be built into the bumper instead, so it just looks a little bit nicer. Actually, if we want to take a peek at what that tow package looks like, let's take a peek at one of the Escapes here. So if we look, so we've got the SEL version of the vehicle, and it's got the tow package there, as you can see. So as I said, it's cut out nicely. It just flows a little bit better inside of the vehicle. Now, in order to get into the trunk of the vehicle, so the Escape SE does not have a powered liftgate. It's strictly going to be manual, so no foot-activated liftgate, unfortunately, but all you're going to do is unlock button there. Now, there's a release button at the very bottom, so just right underneath where your license plate would sit, all you're gonna do is press that button and then lift it up. So very straightforward. So let's take a peek at the cargo dimensions for the vehicle. Now that is going to be with just the cargo area. The seats are not folded down. As you can see there, a little bit of a difference when we've got that second row folded down. So we've got even more space to be able to store some things there. And as you can see, we do have a 60-40 split, so 60% driver, 40% passenger. So if for whatever reason we need to have one side or the other down, we've got the capability to easily do that. Now, as we start to take a little bit of a peek inside of the back of this thing. So a few things to point out just along the left-hand side there. As you can see, we've got a cigarette lighter adapter, so your traditional 12-volt adapter. And that's really about it from a technology perspective back here. But as we pop this thing up, as you can see there, we do have a little bit of storage space along the side. We've got our spigot, and we'd use that if we ever needed to use a jerry can to fill up the vehicle, and a tiny little bit of storage space. And then we also do have our mini spare tire. Now you can just kind of make it out there, but that is where the jack is located. So if we ever need to change the tire ourselves, that's where we'd go. Now, a couple things to point out as well. This is going to be the standard backing that we've got for the cargo area. There are different accessories available in order to give that a rubberized tray instead. Now, in order to be able to fill up and gas in this thing, it is just your regular 87 octane, so you don't need to use a premium fuel inside of it. Filling up is just along our driver's side, as you can see there. All we're gonna do is press, and we're gonna open it up, and it's a capless system, so we're just gonna insert the hose, fill up. Once you're done, you're just gonna click and lock it back into place. But one thing to point out is, if you're ever needing to fill this thing up using a jerry can, that white spigot that we saw in the back just above that mini spare tire, we would insert that white spigot first, jerry can after that, and then fill it up from there. And then all we're gonna do is just close it, click it, and lock it back into place. All right, when it comes down to the back seat, the back seat of the Escape is actually surprisingly spacious. I'm 6 feet tall. I've got about 2 inches roughly of headspace over above. So if you're gonna be if you've got taller passengers, they may need to sit in that front seat in order to be able to get comfortably inside of this vehicle. Now, one other thing that's really, really unique about the Escape, what they introduced in the 2020 model was the ability to adjust these seats. So just in between our legs, there's a little bar. We've got the ability to slide the seat forward and backwards a little bit, which is great, especially if we need all of the seats up and we need a little bit of extra cargo space. So we've got the ability to do that. And even with the seat all the way up, I've got the driver's seat set up for somebody who's 6 feet tall, and it's not overly comfortable, but I still do have a little bit of room for my knees there. Then just slide this thing back as we need to. Now, as I mentioned, 60-40 split, so 60% driver, 40% passenger, so we can fold each side down individually if we need to in order to extend that space out to get some more cargo in the back. Now, from a technology perspective in the back here, not really much to write home about, but as you can see along the bottom there, we've got a few USB ports, so our USB-A and then USB-C, so our mini USB port. Outside of that, we do not have any cup holders in the back of this thing this year, so no cup holders that are available. And we do have single pocket along our passenger side if we need to store some things in the back. Taking a peek along the driver's side door. So a couple things to point out along the very top. As you can see there, we've got our unlock and our lock buttons. We've also got the ability to kill off power to our rear windows. We've got the ability to adjust our mirrors and then our basic window control buttons. As we start to move along the side, looking just to the left-hand side of the steering wheel, we've got a selector switch. So this one is going to determine what's going on with the running lamps. So the very top is going to be off. The middle one there, so we've got the A, which is going to be the auto setting. So I always recommend keep it on that auto setting, and the big reason why is because it's automatically going to change between the daytime or the nighttime running lamps depending on how bright it is outside. And then the very bottom, it's going to be on all the time. So again, really a matter of preference there, but I always just recommend keeping it on the auto setting because it's going to flip them on and off as necessary. Off to the right a little bit more, we've got our plus and minus buttons. These are going to be our dimmer switches in order to make the instrument cluster, as well as that Sync3 screen, a little bit brighter or darker, depending on your personal preference. Now, adjusting the driver's seat inside of the Escape is a very straightforward process. So 6-way adjustable. We can, if we just jump in between our legs there's a lever, so we can crank that lever up in order to move the seat forwards and backwards as necessary. Once you've got your perfect position, just release, and you're good to go. There are a few different levers along the side. So left-hand side on the driver, right-hand side on the passenger. The very first one, so that bigger one, is going to give you the ability to either lower the seat if you need to, or you can crank it up if you need to raise the seat. So depending on your height, you've got the ability to easily adjust that. So with the seat all the way down, as I said, I'm 6 feet tall. I've got probably 4 inches plus of headspace up above, almost 5 inches of headspace. So tons of space up overhead if you're going to be a taller driver, just knowing that you've got the capability to do that. Now there's one more lever that's going to give you the ability to move that backrest forwards and backwards as necessary. Now on top of that, we also do have the ability to adjust our headrest so we can move that up or down as we like to, and then just kind of release it when you're set to go. Just by our left knee, there's a little lever. We're just going to crank that lever down. And it's telescopic, so we can bring the steering wheel in and out. We can go up and down with it. Once you've got that perfect position, we're just going to take that lever, crank it back up into place, and you're set to go. All right, now this is the Sync3 screen, and this is the screen that we're going to be met with when the vehicle's first turned on. Now, for whatever reason you're not on this screen, you might be on either your audio, your phone, whatever the case may be. We're just going to press the home button, and that'll just bring us back to this middle screen instead. Now, one thing to note, this one does not have the factory navigation. That is available as an option. This specific one doesn't have it, but if it did, the button would show up just along the bottom there. Now, one of the nice things is that you don't technically even need to use factory navigation. If you don't have it, don't worry about it, because you've got the ability to either use Apple CarPlay or Android Auto inside of this thing, which means you can use Google Maps, Apple Maps, or Waze directly through this middle screen. So it's really, really neat. First up, so along the very bottom, if we click on our audio, we've got the ability to change sources. So we've got our AM, FM, SiriusXM, and then our Bluetooth. Now, if we had a USB memory stick with some songs on it and we plugged it into a USB port, that would also show up. If my phone was connected, certain apps like Spotify, Pandora, or LiveX Live would also work directly through this middle screen. So we can select whatever source we'd like to, and we can either tune by pressing the direct tune button there. There's a tuning knob a little bit down, and then we also have the ability to use our voice on the steering wheel, so using that prompt. If we want to save a station, after you've changed to the station that you'd like, all you have to do is press and hold any of the available presets, and as you can see there, boom, it's now saved it. So very straightforward there. Now, if we go into our phone settings, we can easily add a phone if we want to, and that's going to be done over Bluetooth. So we do have the ability to make phone calls, receive phone calls, look at text messages, things like that by setting up Bluetooth, and we've also got the ability to use Android Auto, Apple CarPlay. But let's start off with adding a phone. Works the same way for both devices, so let's just go add phone.
Search for your vehicle on your device and select it once it is found.
Okay, now what we're going to want to make sure we do inside of our phone, we're just going to go to Bluetooth, make sure our Bluetooth is turned on, and we're going to give that a second, but watch what happens on the bottom. All right, so just a second there, it's going to populate in just a sec. There we go, perfect. So we're just going to go Ford Escape.
Confirm that the pin displayed on Sync matches the pin displayed on your device.
And we just want to make sure these pin numbers match up, which they do, so we're going to hit pair and yes. Okay, next up, it's asking me,
For your safety, please stay alert to changing road conditions and use Sync's voice-activated features while your vehicle is in motion.
Thank you. All right, here we go. Now, it also wants me to allow my contacts and favorites to sync. We're connecting the phone, so yeah, let's make sure that happens. So we're going to hit allow. Okay. As you can see there, we're just about connected, so we have one more step to take. As you can see there, we've got 911 assist. I always recommend keeping that one turned on because if you're ever in an accident, the vehicle is automatically going to dial 911 for us. Set as a favorite phone. So if you've got multiple devices that you've got connected to the vehicle, this will show up. So if you're connecting more than one device, you can set one as a favorite if you'd like to. So yeah, let's say that this one's going to be my favorite device. And automatically download our contacts. Yeah, we want to make sure we do that. We're connecting it, so let's just hit finish there, and we are now paired. So we've got my calls, my contacts, my phone, we've got a number of other things. Now, as I mentioned, if we go to audio for a second, and we're going to go to sources. So as you can see there, we've got LiveX Live, which is a radio app that I've got installed on my cell phone. Under the app screen, same thing. We've got LiveX Live, Spotify, things like that would show up directly through this middle screen. Very, very straightforward. Now, in order to be able to set up Android Auto and Apple CarPlay, it's also a very straightforward process. We're just going to take our USB cable and we're going to plug it into any of the available USB ports. Boom, step one complete. Step number two, what we're going to do is insert that cable into our phone. Boom, step number two complete. Watch this, boom. Apple CarPlay, that's how you use your phone. We want to make sure that we hit continue there. Privacy terms and conditions, must collect, yeah, okay, we need to agree to that in order to be able to use CarPlay, so we're just going to hit agree. And wait for it, 2 seconds, boom, just about done, okay. So if we look, so allow CarPlay with Sync3 while the phone is locked, yeah, we want to make sure that CarPlay is usable, so we're gonna hit allow, and we are connected. Look at this big, beautiful Sync3 screen with Apple CarPlay installed, so it looks really, really sharp. Now, a couple things to point out, as you can see, we've got phone, music, maps. That's one of the interesting ones. So we can use, I've got Apple Maps installed on this phone, I've got Google Maps, and I've also got the Waze app installed. So you can use any of these map applications directly through this middle screen. And that's one of the big reasons why I was saying, if you don't have factory navigation, don't worry about it because you can rely on your phone's navigation instead, and you've got the capabilities to switch between different things, which is really cool. Now, I did have somebody ask me if we've got the capabilities to use Google Maps while listening to the radio. Listen for a second. We've got the radio rocking, and we're also using maps directly through this middle screen. So yeah, you do have the capabilities and the flexibility to be able to do that. Now, one nice thing about the Apple CarPlay side of things is that if we look on the phone for a second, we can go to our general settings, CarPlay, Sync3, and now we can customize. So as you can see there, we've got a basic, so this is going to be our default layout. But let's say, I don't know, maybe you prefer to use the Waze app instead. So all you have to do is just drag it. You can move it to the top and then watch what happens. Boom! Jumps it to the top there. So you've got the ability to easily adjust. If you don't use the Waze app whatsoever, we can completely remove it. And if we scroll to the very bottom, we can add it back in if we need to. Now, if you're kind of playing around with things, you mess up, don't worry. At the very top, we can just hit reset and reset the layout. So it's going to reset, boom, bump it back to that default setting again. and the home screen from there. Now, if for whatever reason you want to make sure that the phone's charged but you're not using CarPlay, all we're going to do is press this forward button, which is going to bring us back to this sync screen. To get back into CarPlay, we would just press the button there, or we can look at our CarPlay preferences. So we can either remove my phone from CarPlay, or we can just turn CarPlay off completely. So as you can see there, CarPlay is no longer connected on the phone, but I'm still connected, which means I'm still charging. So that's a really, really neat feature. So my phone is fully connected there still, so I can still make phone calls and things like that. In order to remove the phone, all we're going to do is go to Settings, Phone, and we've got View Devices, and we've got the ability to look at my phone. We can disconnect, or we can completely remove. So we're going to remove, boom, and we are now fully disconnected. Now, setting up Android Auto is the exact same process. We're just going to take our USB cable, plug it into any of the available ports, boom, and from there, same idea. We're just going to take that USB cable, we're going to take my phone, we're just going to slide it in, and watch this. Uh-oh, Android Auto on both of them. So we're going to continue there, and looking at the very bottom, so we've got to unlock my phone in order for it to work. So we're just going to unlock, boom, unlock to continue. Now, Android Auto, so a couple things. In order to use it, same thing, what we saw on the Apple side of things, we need to agree to the privacy terms and conditions. And Android Auto would like to turn on my Bluetooth and sync, so we're just going to hit next, and watch this. Uh-oh, what's happening? Look at that, we're now fully connected, and we can save this one as a favorite phone if we want to. We can download the contacts, and on my phone it's asking me, do I want to allow access to messages? Yeah, want to make sure we do that. Set as a favorite phone? Sure, why not? Let's actually go to our home screen for a second there. Perfect. Now this is going to be the home screen for Android Auto. So same thing, we are fully connected. We've got the ability to use Google Maps. Now I don't have Waze installed on this phone, but if you had it installed, you'd be able to use it in this middle screen as well. So really, really nice look to it. We've got the ability to use podcasts, look at my calendar, different settings. Curious, what settings? Show notifications, access on the phone screen. Okay, so pretty straightforward stuff. We can jump directly into the maps if we want to. We've got our notification center, and we can also use our Google Assistant. Now, when it comes down to it, Sync3, it also does have the capability to support the Ford Alexa app. Now, for whatever reason, it's not available in Canada, so I can't show you how the feature itself works, unfortunately, but just knowing all you have to do is go to your app store, either on the Google or the Apple side of things, download the Alexa app, and you can use it directly through this middle screen. Now, what we saw on the Ford side of things, if you want to have your phone still charging while you're connected, we're just going to press the Ford button there, so Sync, which is going to bring us back to this Sync3 screen, and we also do have maps jumping in there. We can jump directly into our Android Auto again, or we can jump into our Android Auto preferences. So what we just saw with Apple, so we can turn it off completely if we want to. We can remove my phone from the Android Auto side of things, and if we look on phone, view devices, my phone is still connected there. So we can look at my recent calls, my contacts, and a number of other things. And if we ever need to remove the phone, what we just saw on the Apple side of things as well. So if we want to completely disconnect, all we have to do is go, disconnect, or boom, we can completely remove. And removed, and it now is completely disconnected, but I'm still charging, I'm just not connected to the vehicle. So we've got a ton of flexibility in order to be able to use this thing. It's kind of really neat what you can do when you really dive into it. Jumping into apps, so mobile apps, there are some that will work directly through this middle screen, pretty straightforward, and settings. So tons of different settings that are there. Let's start off with our sound settings. So we've got the ability to change out our triple mid-range bass, speed compensated volume. Moving back, we've got our clock settings. So our clock, we can either go to our settings and then clock, or at the very top, we can just press the clock, and that'll bring us right into the settings there. So we can change our 1 hour or 1 minute, switch between AM or PM, or we can change into our military time if we want to, just off to the side, and we can reset our clock to our GPS. So if we're traveling to the east or the west coast, we've got the ability to hit that reset, and then it's automatically going to reset us based off of where the vehicle's located. We've got Bluetooth, so we can either turn Bluetooth off or we can add in a Bluetooth device. So that would be things like a cell phone. If you've got a Bluetooth-enabled MP3 player, etc., you can connect it to the vehicle that way. Phone is where we would go to be able to add a phone in, which we just finished doing along the bottom there. So you've got some different ways to access it. If we look at radio, so radio, text, and let's actually change our preset pages. So I always recommend doing this. Give yourself the max number of preset pages, and we're going to touch on this in just a sec. So if we go back to the audio for a second, our preset pages there. So look at this. We've now got up to 30 individual presets. So if you're a heavy listener, you've got the capabilities to set it up where you've got a mix of AM, FM, SiriusXM, etc. Now, if we were to change it from FM into SiriusXM, watch what happens. We go to settings. SiriusXM is there now. So we've got the ability, as I mentioned, leave the preset pages alone there. And then we've also got the ability to tweak a couple things. So if we want to, we can have different channel sets. We can lock it out, parental lockout. We've got the ability to tune start, and we've also got the ability to lock some channels out. So if there are certain channels like Howard Stern, if you don't want kids to be listening to it, you've got the ability to easily lock that out if you want to. And then back out, if we go into our audio settings, change our source back to our FM, as you can see there, boom. All right, so as you can see there, we are now back to our regular settings. Now moving into our driver assistance settings. So that's where we get into some more of the advanced settings for this thing. So let's start off with the basics. So let's touch base on the lane keeping system. So the lane keeping system works 3 different ways. So if we look at that, so it's either going to be an alert. So the alert, what that'll do is if we start to veer over without signaling, we'll get a little bit of a steering wheel shake, almost as if you're running over rumble pavement. The aid is actually going to recenter you and pull you back into your lane, and the alert and the aid will do both. So you'll get a little bit of a steering wheel shake, and it's going to recenter you back into your lane. Moving back, we've got the intensity, and that's the intensity of the steering wheel shake. So high, normal, or low setting. Moving back, we've got pre-collision assist. So if the vehicle senses a potential collision, it's going to actively brake for you. So you've got the ability, if you don't want that feature, to just turn it off, and then you can adjust the sensitivity as well. Actually, one of my subs, Andy G, he actually told me, I think we commented about a week or 2 ago, and let me know that the system actually works incredibly well. It's actually one that I've never wanted to try in person because, you know, the whole potentially running into somebody thing. But the pre-collision assist is really cool because let's say if you're distracted for a moment and somebody slams on their brakes in front of you, your vehicle will automatically brake. So it's really cool. Rear view camera, so we've got that ability there. So if we actually just turn the vehicle on to reverse for a second, boom, we've got a reverse camera there. Now this one does not have the reverse sensing system. That's the SEL high or above. And that beeping that we're getting is a cross traffic alert. So actually let's go to cross traffic alert for a second. We'll skip over blind spot for just a second, but if we look at our cross traffic alert there, what that's going to do is if the vehicle senses a potential collision coming perpendicular, it's going to let us know of a potential collision. Blind spot system lets us know if anybody's entered the blind spot on either side of the vehicle. And actually, let's jump over. Let's actually adjust that for a second. Let me show you this. Boom. Okay, there we go. So if we turn that on, so we're going to look, and so you can just kind of make it out there. Okay, there we go. So that little orange thing there, that's the blind spot system. So it lets you know if anybody's entered the blind spot on either side of the vehicle. The driver alert, if we get too many notifications because we're, kind of changing lanes without signaling, gonna let us know that we should probably take a break, and we've got the ability to turn that one off. And the last one is going to be our traction control, so we can turn that system on or off if we'd like to. Next up, we've got some basic vehicle settings. So things like 30-minute idle, so when the vehicle's remote started or if it's just sitting there idling, 30-minute max, and then the vehicle's just gonna turn itself off. Rear occupant alert, I want you to watch this for a second. Okay, first of all, how cool is that? It's such a simple system. It's such a simple fix that Ford's come up with in order to have this thing going. So where that comes into play is if you've got a young child, it's a reminder to make sure you check the back seat to make sure nobody's there. So I love that safety setting. It's incredible. My Key gives you the ability to set up certain limitations for a key fob. So let's say if, maybe you don't want the vehicle to go past a certain speed, you can set it up so that a key fob can have certain limitations. So if the vehicle recognizes a specific fob, it won't go past a certain speed, which is kind of neat. Onboard serial number, very straightforward. Remote start. So as I mentioned, the SE version of the vehicle does not have remote start on the key fob, but it does have remote start, and that's done through the Ford Pass app. So if you wanted to, you can get rid of remote start completely, but when the vehicle's remote started, what happens? Climate control, is the vehicle automatically going to determine what the cabin temperature should be, or is it going to be based off of what the last settings were? Our seats. So on the seat itself, if our heated seat was on or off, it would let the vehicle essentially determine what happens there, and then the duration of the remote start. Does it last for 5, 10, or 15 minutes? And from there, we've got our wipers. So a few basic things. So the wipers themselves, courtesy wipe is if you've got the wipers going and then it stops, it's just going to go once more in order to clear off that little bit of extra junk that might be on the windshield. From there, we've got our rear wiper on when in reverse. So if you've got your windshield wipers going and you put the car into reverse, it's automatically going to turn on that rear wiper as well, which is a really cool setting. Always recommend just keeping that one turned on. And we've got our lighting. So lighting, auto high beam. The vehicle is equipped with auto high beam. So yeah, you can use the stick to flash it on the steering wheel, sure, but the auto high beam setting, what that's going to do is it's automatically going to turn the high beams on as necessary before dimming them and turning them off completely, which is kind of neat. Our auto lamp delay, so when we go to lock the vehicle, do the lamps stay on for 10 seconds, 20 seconds, 120 seconds. All right, and moving down, last one are going to be our locks. So the locks are going to be for the auto unlock, the mislock chirp. Mislock chirp is actually one of the neat ones. So if you go to shut the door and it doesn't shut completely and you go to lock it, it's going to double beep, letting you know that you haven't actually shut the door properly. So that's really cool. When the vehicle's unlocked, do all doors become unlocked, or is it just the driver's door? So really a matter of safety and a preference there. Intelligent access, if the vehicle recognizes the fob there, we can easily get in without having to press unlock on the key fob. That's going to be the basics of our vehicle settings. Jumping into Ford Pass Connect. So the vehicle itself is equipped with an onboard modem, and it gives you the ability to use the vehicle as a wireless hotspot for up to 10 devices, which is kind of cool. So all you'd have to do is make sure you get a data-only plan through your cell phone provider and then just connect the vehicle, and then you'd be able to use it as a wireless hotspot. Moving back, and we've also got some Wi-Fi settings. So the Wi-Fi settings, make sure that you connect to Wi-Fi at home and make sure you've got auto updates turned on. And the reason why is because if there's a software update that's available that can be done over the air, the vehicle will do it automatically if you're connected at home. So always recommend just make sure you set it up. It's super simple to do. General settings, so we can change between either English, Spanish, or French. Temperature, we can go Celsius or Fahrenheit, kilometers and liters per 100 or miles per gallon. We can go PSI, and the beeping that we're getting here. If you're really not a fan of that beeping, you can turn this off by just pressing that touch screen beep there. Automatic system update, same thing, turn that on or off, and the reset. So we've got two different reset options, either Ford Pass Reset or the Master Reset. So if for whatever reason Ford Pass Connect is not working properly on your phone, you can just press the Ford Pass Reset and it's going to reset it back to your factory default. And then the Master Reset is going to wipe everything. So that's going to get rid of the audio settings, that's going to get rid of everything that you've saved. So if you're selling the vehicle, just do a Master Reset before it's sold, and that'll bring it back to your factory defaults. And I think that is the basics of the general settings. Perfect. And next up, we've got our 911 Assist, which we've already turned on, and we've covered that one off. Moving back, we've got mobile apps. So some apps will work directly through this middle screen, and we've got the ability to enable them via USB as well. So certain apps will work through a USB. Our display. So as nice as this display is, some people might find it's a little bit too busy. So if you find it's a little bit too much for you, you can turn the display off completely, or if you want to, you can turn it into a calming screen instead. So the calming screen gets rid of the majority of things. We've just got our time and then the date. Bring it back to life. And jumping back into our display. So as of right now, it's the daytime mode that is being shown, but it's in the auto setting. So that's going to flip me between the daytime or the nighttime mode, depending on how bright it is outside. But me personally, like, I always lock these things in the nighttime mode. I just think this looks really cool. Like, I love blue. I love the look of this thing. So matter of preference, either daytime all the time, nighttime all the time, or let the vehicle determine if it should be in the daytime or the nighttime mode. Now, one thing to note, if you're getting weird flickering in the screen, it's kind of going between that daytime or the nighttime mode, just change it one way or the other. It could just be something wrong with one of the sensors as well. All right, next up, voice control. Voice control, I want you to listen to something for a second. 97.7.
Tuning to FM 97.7.
Okay, so it's changed the station. All right, so if we look there, it's changed the station for us, but if we go to advanced mode, listen for a second. 94.9. Okay, nothing happened. We didn't get a confirmation that anything happened, but look, it has changed the station. So the advanced mode means that we're not going to get as many notifications. Phone confirmation, do you want to call such and such person? And then the voice command list. So when we press the voice command button on the steering wheel, this is the command list. Do you want that one to show up? Really, matter of personal preference there. Moving back, the last one is our valet mode. So with the valet mode, if we enter a 4-digit PIN, it's going to lock out the screen, so we can't press any buttons. Again, whether or not you use that one, up to you. It's a good general safety setting, especially if you're going to be having a valet park your vehicle. And that's going to be the basics of this Sync3 screen. Now as we start to move down the console though, so a few things to point out. So as you can see there, we've got our volume rocker. Not too shabby for a stock speaker that hasn't been upgraded. So really, really nice sound to it there. Along our right side, so we've got the ability to tune that way, or on the screen, we've got the ability to tune, or we can use the voice command prompt to tune off of our steering wheel. We've got the ability to pull up our hotkey for our audio settings to change between treble, mid-range, bass. We can change songs if we want to. We can play or pause, or we've got the ability to kill off our screen. So either go for the calming screen, turn it off, or bring it back to life. Scrolling down a little bit, we've got our four-way blinkers that we can easily toggle on or off. We've got our fan control. Moving down a tiny little bit. And there we go. So as you can see, we've got our basic fan control settings there, so we can adjust that as necessary. Turn the climate on or off. We've got the ability to select if it's going to our windshield face or to our feet. Air circulation, air conditioning, and it's single zone climate control. Moving down a little bit, we've got the ability to turn on our rear window defroster. And one of the nice things about the Escape SE is that we do have heated seats. Now that's going to be heated for the driver and the passenger side. Moving down a tiny little bit more, as you can just kind of make out there, we've got our USB and our USB-C ports, as well as our cigarette lighter, so our 12-volt adapter. As we start to move down a tiny little bit, as you can see there, so we do have our selector switch to move between park, reverse, neutral, drive, and then our low mode. A few cup holders, and we've also got our parking brake, so electronic parking brake. Our auto hold setting, that's going to hold us into place. So if we have this setting on and we're stopped, we take our foot off the brake, and our car won't move. Moving down, we've also got two other settings, our auto start stop. So that's the one that's potentially going to kill power to the engine if we're stopped for an extended period of time. Turn that one on or off. And then we've also got a selector switch to change between our different drive modes. So if we press that button, watch what happens on the screen. So change between our normal, eco, sport, slippery, and then our deep snow and sand. So certain modes like the deep snow and sand or slippery are going to kill off the traction control, and then just moving back into our normal setting again. Now, as we move across, as you can see there, we do have a little storage space there, and nothing crazy to write home about. Now, one thing to note, we do have a couple pen holders there, which are kind of neat. So we've got the two there, so if we need to store some pens, we've got the capabilities to easily do that. Now, taking a peek at the steering wheel, so a couple things to point out. This version of the Escape does not have the adaptive cruise control package. That is available there, but we do have our regular cruise, so we can easily turn it on, we can set it as necessary, and then we can cancel it out from there, or we can resume if we ever have to brake. Along the left-hand side and the bottom, we've got the ability to either increase or decrease our audio volume, and then we can mute as necessary. Moving along the left-hand side, so we've got a back button, we've got our menu button, and then we've got a basic up and down. We'll get to that one in just a sec, but as we move down, we've got the ability to either skip between songs, we can hang up or answer a phone call, and then we've got our voice command button there. So that voice command button is the one that's going to turn on our voice prompts there, so we've got the ability to either change stations. If we had built-in navigation, we could navigate, we can make phone calls, etc., just by pressing that button. Now this, as you can see along the side, those are going to be the menu command buttons for this little guy. So as you can see there, this is going to be our basic back button. This is going to be the up and down to jump in between screens. And this is going to be the menu button to give us some more options. So let's kind of play around a little bit. So as you can see there, so if we press, let's start off with our basic My View. Now we're on a trip, so if we want to ever reset, we're just going to press and hold the OK button in the middle there. So it's going to take a second and it's going to reset all values. Perfect. And if we press the menu button there, so we can go between trip 1, trip 2, we can reset all values, or we can configure the view to look a little bit different. So we can change screens out. So if we don't want our trip timer to be there, odometer, distance to empty, etc., we've got the ability to select what screens will show up as we move up and down. Now, if we are on our audio setting there, we've got the ability to change between either our AM, FM, SiriusXM, etc. We can jump back. As we move into our phone, if our phone is connected, we could make phone calls, etc. Moving down to some basic information, so our seat belts, we can check to see who's got their seatbelt on. So actually, why don't I put on a seatbelt on this one? Boom, so as you can see there, we do have a seatbelt that's now on the passenger side, and we can disconnect that one. Moving back, and let's scroll down. So we've got our auto start stop, we've got our driver alert, intelligent all-wheel drive, my key, as well as our tire pressure and oil life. So each one of these screens are going to have the ability to have a little bit more. And all you're going to do is move to whatever screen you'd like to, and then you're just going to press the menu button on the bottom right-hand side of the steering wheel to bring up some different options. Moving there, as you can see, we've got our trip audio coach, we've got our fuel economy, digital speedometer, or our calming screen. So if we go digital speedometer for a sec, as you can see there, we do have our digital speedometer showing up instead. So you can kind of customize it and you can play around with it. If you don't want anything showing up on that screen, we can go calming. So really a matter of preference. As we move down our driver assistance settings, so that is, actually, if we look on the left-hand side of the steering wheel, we've got the ability to turn our lane keeping system on or off. We know it's on when we see this little button on the very bottom there, so that one's going to show up. It's going to disappear as the system's on or off. But with the lane keeping system on, once we hit above 60 kilometers an hour, that's going to go green, essentially letting us know that the lane keeping system is activated. So that's the one that's going to keep us in our lane if we start to veer over without signaling, or it'll give us a little bit of a steering wheel shake. So we can toggle that one on or off as we'd like to. All right, let's see, what else do we got? Moving down, we've got our, back to our audio settings, and I think that's actually it. Yeah, that is going to be the basics of the steering wheel and cluster screen there. But a couple other things to point out. Left-hand stick there, as I mentioned, that one's going to turn the lane keeping system on or off. We've got the ability to flash our high beams if we want to, but as I mentioned, the vehicle's got auto high beams. If for whatever reason you want to keep high beams on all the time, you just have to make sure that the selector switch is turned to the very bottom, which is going to have it on all the time. Then we're just going to flick away to keep those high beams permanently on. Off to our left stick. So a few things to point out. Rain sensing wipers. So we've got the ability to select how sensitive it is to rain that's hitting the windshield. We're going to pull in towards us for those front wipers. And we're going to push away for the back. On top of that, along the very back, as you can see there on the right stick, I should say, we've got the ability to turn our rear wipers on or off as necessary. Now, as you start to move up overhead, so a few things to point out. So as you can see there, we've got a little business card holder. Thanks, Ben, for pointing that one out. And we've got the ability to, look at that. So we've got our mirror there with our lights. Turn that on, and we can take this, and if we want to, we can crank it out a tiny little bit so we can block a little bit more sun. Not a ton of space there, but a little bit there. And up overhead. So as you can see there, we've got our sunglasses holder, standard in Ford vehicles, and we've also got our cabin light controls. So this is going to make sure that the cabin light never comes on. This is going to be on when the doors are open, and this is going to be on permanently. So you've got some different options there. Now this specific one does not have the sunroof, as you can see there, but if it did, the sunroof buttons would just be along the top there. And that is going to be the basics of the vehicle. Well, folks, that was a look at the 2021 Ford Escape SE. What did you think? If you have any questions, drop down in the comments section below and let me know. But until I see you next time, make sure you stay safe. This is the 2021 Ford Mustang Mach. No, it's not. It's the Escape.